Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Coach Dad podcast.
Well done, Austin.
So hello everybody and welcome to the 8th instalment of the Coach Dad podcast with me, your host Ben. Now before I get into this week's topic, I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's taken their time out to listen to my little podcast on the various platforms out there, Apple, Spotify, Google, etc, etc. The numbers have slowly been going up week on week and I just want to say a massive thank you. It's all organic. I do not do any marketing or anything like that or any socials, barely. I've shared it once on my own Facebook page and that's it, amongst friends and families, and it's organic growing week on week and the numbers are really impressive, to be fair. So again, massive thank you for everyone who's tuned in and listened to this little sort of podcast, me sitting in my kitchen with my mocked up little room that I've made with a bit of a blanket and a bit of garage door insulation, and here I am, little podcast and away I'm going. So massive thank you to everybody. Now this week's episode is a massive controversial one. You could see from the title of the episode, it's called Game Time. Now Game Time is a massive ongoing debate week in, week out amongst grassroots football at every rung of the ladder, especially in youth football, and it's something I see every day online in every forum, and it creates arguments, it creates tension. There's people who have different ideas and philosophies on it. You have coaches side of it, you have parents side of it. So I'm just going to have a look at sort of both sides of it now from my viewpoint and the things I've seen over the last couple of years, one as being a coach and one also being a parent. So I've got lots of sort of thoughts and ideas on it. But before we get into that, we are going to have a look at the football in my household in the last week, in the week that was.
This week's football news.
So this week marked the start of our end of season friendlies. It's not quite Manchester United, Newcastle, Chelsea, etc, on an end of season tour across America or Asia or anything like that. This was Sholdham Under-8's little tour of West Norfolk. So it started with a game against AFC Kings Lynn, who we came up against once last season. Twice? I can't think now. I think it was once actually, and they beat us really well. Not double figures, but they beat us well, and I don't think we scored against them. But so we had an away friendly in a 7v7 game, our second one, but our first proper go at it. And it was away at their place in Wigan Hall, a little village, only sort of 10-15 minutes up the road in the middle of nowhere. And I'm delighted to report that we had an absolutely fantastic game. I will get into a little bit about the result and how the game unfolded in a little bit. But first of all, I'm just sort of take you back to the beginning of the day. We turned up and I expected to have most of the boys there. I had 11 in total, including a new lad who came along. He trained with us once in the week and a great little player, fantastic ability. So I was glad to have him come along and see how we got on in the game. And I'll be honest, I looked at what I had. The boys were warming up before the game, and just behind the goal, about 10 metres behind, was a dike. So they had loads of fun warming up, sort of firing balls into the dike and then going to get them and stuff like that. We have a little bit of fun. I was watching the other team warm up and they were a bit more serious, sort of runs and sprints and stuff like that. But not for us. We were sort of just facking some balls and stuff like that. Don't worry, I do get it structured in the end. I just let them have a little bit of sort of burn off energy when they arrive. So that they did that, and I had a sort of little think. I had no sort of preconceptions of a lineup before I got there, but then I thought, no, I'm gonna go strong here. So I put what I felt was probably my strongest lineup out without seeing the new boy as well. So I started really, really strong, and I'll be honest, we did absolutely fantastic for our first proper go at 7-on-7. And we started so well, we were so comfortable. I think we were the better team in the first quarter. We were very, very comfortable. We had the lion's share of perhaps the ball, and they perhaps nicked it on chances, but they were just long shots. And I felt that we had the more probing sort of action. We were trying to pass the ball really, really well. The couple of boys I had at the back, Fred and Ollie, were absolutely sort of colossal for me. And I just felt so comfortable with those two at the back and sort of anything that come their way, they would get rid of and clear. And then got to the end of the first quarter, it was goalless. The second quarter, we just came out absolutely on fire. Made a couple of changes. I introduced the new boy and made a couple of changes. So overall, may have sort of ability-wise, may have weakened us a little bit because I put a new lad on, two new lads on in terms of ability, or one new lad on in terms of ability and one new lad I've never seen before. And we just came out the traps and we were just at it. And we scored within a few minutes. The new boy went on this lovely little run, played out from the back, went down the left-hand side, crossed in the ball. And Bill, who's my little goal machine, first time just hit it. I can't even really recall how he did it. He must have sort of side-footed it and it just went in the corner. So we were well away. We were leading 1-0, quarter of the way, or early on in the second quarter, and we were in control. And I think there was 2 minutes left to go before half time, and I think I made another sub again. So sort of used the roll on, roll off again. That I'll feed into the theme of that, and game time and substitutions. But yeah, I then had done a third change by then, so I've used 3 of the 4 subs, and obviously getting near half time now, so I needed to get the other lad on as well. But sort of we were doing so well, I didn't want to sort of change it too much. And then we sort of a couple of little mistakes from our end, the goalkeeper not understanding that when you've got the ball in play in your hands, you don't have to put it down on the edge of the box and kick out. But he did that, and it's like, no, and then sort of kicked it out. We conceded possession and then conceded a goal from there, and then pretty much last kick of the first half conceded another goal, a really scrappy goal really. We didn't clear our line, so we went into the break 2-1 down. Bear in mind now that this is longer games, there's more of us on the pitch. But yeah, we just sort of, in that first half, really, I felt we shaded it really. We had the lion's share of, I felt, possession, had some good chances really. And then I made sort of a lot of changes at half time, but I changed people in position as well. So we really tried different people in different positions, and people who perhaps at five-a-side had been the one defender, I'd put them right wing or something like that. I was just looking to change people's position and just give them some different experience, and just see if you think you can have a kid nailed down from what you see in training in the game, but you might put them up front and that, and they might surprise you and get you a hat trick. So by then we were, as I say, 2-1 down, a goal down, but I wasn't really interested in the scoreline, to be fair. Like, as daft as that sounds, I really wanted to get everyone playing. So I made a raft of changes. Again, though, we did really well. We went out. We really did well. We battled hard, but we conceded a few more goals. We conceded another one again. Bill got another goal as well. So I think it ended 5 or 6-2 in the end. But yeah, for us, like I say, we've been getting trounced 9s, 10s recently, early on in the season, and we were now up 20 as well. I said, I shouldn't really talk about score lines, but that's just, we're in friendly season now, so I'm just going to sort of put it out there. And it's not too deep, like I say, it's friendly games. So yeah, just to get the score as competitive as that against a really good team as well, who really did hammer us last season, to come away with such a game where I could just see in the first half that we were so fantastic and just bossing it. And yeah, this sort of plays into the title of game time. Like, if my ego took over when we were winning, I could have left it and not changed a thing. At half time, I could have sort of 2-1, we're chasing it. I could have perhaps reintroduced players I brought off and then only move 1 or 2 of the new, or swap a new one for a new one who's just come on. But no, I gave everyone game time, I gave the fair share of game time. In the end, it'll that'll do them the world of good, and I'm going to continue that philosophy from now until we get later on, and depends how long I look after these boys, and if it's all the way through to when it gets really competitive at under 12s, then yeah, I may look at mixing it up. But for now, that's how I'm going to approach it. Everyone's going to get equal game time. I had, as I say, 11, so it was nice to have 7 out there, and then just being able to check, like I say, when it's 5-a-side and you've got 10 and you've got to change all 10 in the breaks and stuff like that. But no, 7-a-side, absolutely fantastic. I think about 11 is the number I've got, and we're developing what I can see is a great little team, and I think 7v7 will take to it really well, because we just looked well suited to it in the first half. It was just a pleasure to watch. So yeah, watch this space. So for next week, we have a home game against a team called Wootton's. We played them twice last year, and again, the first time we played them, it was only our second game, and they absolutely blew us away. We played them maybe a month or so ago, and it was under double figures, but again, it was more lopsided. I don't think we even scored that game. So yeah, we've got them in a friendly, and I'm looking forward to it, to be fair. So I spoke to the manager, and they were on a great little run. I don't think they lost come the turn of the year, but I'm I'm looking forward to getting my boys in now and getting them a real test and just testing them, see where they go, because this is what we need now. I'm just can't wait for the weekends to come around, and I've got a load of friendlies lined up through May. I've got next week. I've literally just had a text flash up on my phone. I could just see from a manager. It's a team in the division above who I've been talking to. Again, I'm happy for our boys to just go and test themselves, get game time. We might get thumped. You never know. We might surprise somebody. So it's all there. It's all coming together. But yeah, and training in the week. Had another great training session this week. I had 11 or 12 of them. Real handful, but they all got it. We were working on some 3-on-2s and various drills, had a big game, and just some fun games at the beginning, but it all feels like, I say, it's all going in the right direction. Now, for my other lad, Caleb, he had a game at home against Kings Lynn Soccer Club. They have played them twice. Once was a draw at their place on my old stomping ground at Kingsway, where I used to play for North Lynn. I think Kings Lynn Soccer Club maybe North Lynn rebadged. I don't know if there's many North Lynn teams anymore. North Lynn used to have a bit of a bad rep, and I used to live at North Lynn for a long time. So yeah, but yeah, he had a game against them, and Caleb started the game in centre midfield, and he was looking to build on his last two performances. I think he was eyeing for a goal maybe as well, but they got up to an absolute flyer, and they went 1-0 up fairly early on. Then they went 2-0 up, and I think Caleb might have assisted that goal, and then Kings Lynn Soccer Club got a goal back to make it 2-1, but it was like 2-1, but didn't really ever feel like they were in danger, if you know what I'm saying. And then from that point, maybe midway in the first half, Watlington they stepped on the gas and they were probing, and they just looked really good. They were battling, they were winning. Just felt like the passing was there, and then they went 3-1 up, I believe, just before half time. Then they come out at the second half, and just from kickoff, they just passed the ball about as good as I've seen them. Sort of, it came back, it went across, it then went the other side, and then went forward, and then led to an attack. And yeah, it felt like really good sort of momentum they were building. And then the game ended up finishing 5-1, a magnificent result. And Caleb come off with about 10 minutes to go, but yeah, it was so good for me to watch him and just see him progress from being sort of new this year and spending his time on the bench for the first half of games, and then coming on for the second half. Now he's worked his way into the team, and he's starting games, and he's playing the majority of them. Sometimes he finishes them, sometimes he comes off with a little bit to go. And the biggest thing I've seen grow within him is his fitness this year. He's now at high school, he's doing more activities after school, basketball, football at the weekends. We're always out playing when we've got a spare 5 minutes. And you can just see sort of the growth in this last year. He had a fantastic year at Swaffham where he learned the basics and just learned a little bit about finding his way through a game. Whereas this year, he's now becoming quite an instrumental player, I think. He's sort of doing the basics. He does some dog's work in midfield. He was actually making them forward runs. He's a bit of a box-to-box. He hasn't scored a goal for this team yet, and he's desperate to get a goal. And he got forward, and he had a couple of chances to get shots off, but he got snuffed out. But everything's just coming together just really nicely for him. But yeah, it's a really measured performance from Watlington, and to come away with a 5-1 victory and it be fairly comfortable it was great to watch. He's got one game left now at the end of next season against Refley. Now he's had two barnstorming games against Refley over the last month, and they've both been close. I think 3-2 and 4-2, both to Refley. Both, I think one was really windy conditions, really tough game. But I think both of them games were over the Easter 2 weeks off where the kids had off, and they were only at 9 and 10 players, and I don't think they had full strength team. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. That's the last league game of the season. They got no training this week. So tomorrow I've got a night off of running about, which is absolutely mega. But yeah, and then Sunday, his last game of the season. And then for him, I'm guessing his coach Wayne will be looking for 11-a-side games as they move up next year under 13s. They're going to be full size. I'm not sure it's full size, but it can be 11-a-side. So it's going to be great to see how he does at that and where he ends up. Obviously, when I say where he ends up, he's going to stay at Watlington. But yeah, just see his progression and just see if it's a bigger pitch. So he's got to up his game if he's going to try and run a game, and he's going to try and be influential in a game. So yeah, he's got to learn another thing there, and I'm sure they'll all do it together and they'll do really well. But yeah, for the football in my household in the week that was it. So yeah, let's get into this week's episode called Game Time. So I just want to start off by talking about the FA guidelines now. I haven't got the exact wording to hand, but the FA guideline is for equal game time, that all kids should get their fair share of game time. And also, when you sign up to a club, most of them often do come with the proviso that your kid will be given a fair share of football game time. Now, as I know, it's not always the case. I had it last year with Swaffham where that soon changed. And now this season, as a coach, I've seen different coaches do things in different ways. Also, as a parent this season, obviously I've watched my boy, but I watch things more closely, I'd say, as last season I was more intent on just watching my boys and weren't really focused on everything else that was going on. But now I see things slightly differently, and I come with the cap on of, equal game time, and that's my ethos. But I look around and I see that that isn't implemented in everyone else's ethos. But is it wrong? Is it right? That's what I'm now going to get into. So before I look at, various different things, I'm going to just talk, about my ethos. So me as a coach and a parent, I see 4 sets of teams every week. I have my own, I see the opposition, and then I see Caleb's, and then I see the opposition that he is playing against. And I will say that the difference between all of them is everyone does it differently, whether when they use their substitutions, who gets to play, who sits out longest, who gets to play all game. And it must be the same across the whole country. And this is why it stirs up so much debate. There's so much feeling involved, and there's so many opinions. I really don't sort of believe that everyone is always going to agree on this. But yeah, my ethos is, obviously, I started the season with 6 boys. And when I started with those 6 boys, because of my experience last year, my ethos was all going to be, you're all going to get the same game time. And now, as I've gone on through the season, I've gone from, 6, 7, 8, 9, and now I'm at 10. And even when I'm at 10, regardless of what's going on, and as I've just talked about in the game that went on Saturday, it doesn't matter if we're winning a game or losing a game. I will make sure that everybody gets their fair share. I will not have a boy sitting out for 3/4 of the game to bring them on for the last 10 minutes, even, just so we win a game. No, that is just not how it's going to be with me. How I manage in-game is I have an app and it just tells me, but, it's plain to see. When I got 10, I know 5 I've got to go for 5. And then when I get to the second half, I may do more roll on, roll off. So the first 2 quarters, I'll have one set, then a second set go on. And then from there, I'll just roll them on every couple of minutes and just chop and change it. And yeah, that's how I've sort of worked it for these last few games at the end of the season. I don't really think about starting lineups too much. I tend to get there on the day of and then just have a little look around. I perhaps think about who started last week, who missed training perhaps, and I don't see that as a negative. There isn't you weren't at training so you're not playing. I just think that the people who are at training probably a little bit more attuned to what we've been doing, so I will perhaps mix them in to start with. Anybody who's new, obviously I'll probably just pop them on the bench just to get them to have a little look at it, and then plop them in the game with sort of a few instructions. And like I just said, with the game at the weekend, I was at half time only a goal down. I could have stuck with perhaps a strong 7 and dipped one of the new boys or some of the lesser ability boys in and out and just swapped them like for like. So I always kept, the quota of better players on, but it would just be meaningless. Now, if we're going to go out and win a game, we're going to win it as a team with everyone playing and everyone involved and everyone having had an input in the game in some way, because the last thing I would want to do is let my ego take over and get to, say, half-time and not change anything. If we're going to win a game, we're going to win it together. That's my philosophy on it. I'm not going to sort of get to an end of a game with one. The ecstasy's there, but I had a couple of boys who never got to barely play any minutes. It's not right for me. It doesn't sit well with me. So, yeah, that's how I approach a game weekend. I don't really have a starting lineup in mind. I then sort of play it by ear when I get there. I have a look about, have a feel out for it, think about who started, and then just go from there, like I say. Get to the quarter, change everybody up, get to half time, and then I just sort of play it by ear. Because by that stage, you've got little boys who are going, oh, can I come off? You can put the best laid plans into place, but when a little boy needs to go for a wee or just tells you, oh, I need to come off for a minute, I'm knackered or whatever. So yeah, you just sort of play it by ear. You try to give everyone the most sort of equal share of opportunity to play football. With new players as well, you really need to bed them in. And the only way they're ever going to improve is game time. I see it with my oldest boys' team. They've got a lot of sort of new players. You've got to remember, people find and fall in love with football at all different ages. It might be at 6 or 7, it might be at 10, 11, 12. And obviously, the older you get, the bigger the gap is going to be. Everyone's going to need fair game time. And that's my philosophy, like I say, with the boys who have been brand new this season. There's been a massive difference between when I started last August to now. It's light and day. Anybody who's new now is noticeably new, so if you know what I mean. So, but I have to get them in. I have to put them in, because if not, in a year or two, when we step up to bigger games, bigger pitches, and I need all these boys playing, I need them all to be at some sort of level. They're not going to get there if I just have them sitting out, and because they're new, I just dip them in and out and just give them a little bit of experience. Nah, if anything, they need to play longer, so always throw them in, always get them on. That's my philosophy. I believe that it should be like that, and obviously with me having a new team and our area and our catchment area, I'm going to need to develop this team anyway. I'm going to need to work with it. I'm not going to get a couple of years down the line and have trials and chop it up and stuff like that. These boys are going to be with me until, however long we decide to do it. So I need to get them progressed. I need to train them. I need to coach them into being good little footballers. If not, it's not going to work out. So getting them at game time is going to be sort of important. And it's always at the sort of forefront of everything I do, is sort of game time and fair game time for everybody. I see lots of posts about it online, and I'm going to go into those in a little bit. That's, like I say, it's one of the biggest contention and one of the biggest sort of emotional things within the grassroots football world is game time and playing time for children. So I'll get into that a little bit. But I do believe that come sort of the ages of where my boy is now, where it turns into under 12s and the boys are at high school, I believe that it is the right time to perhaps use tactics a little bit differently, use substitutes maybe a little bit differently, perhaps, as anything under 12s is non-competitive. It doesn't matter, results don't matter, goals are not counted for, blah blah blah. Whereas when you get under 12s, it's out there. The boys are at high school now, the boys and girls are at high school, things start to become a little bit more grown up, becomes a little bit more real world. I believe that they need that little bit of edge, they need that little bit of to be challenged, so they need to know that there's a team in the league that are better than them, and the only way to go out there and be better is to play more, is to work on things in the garden by yourself, is to play every night with your mates in the field or parks or in school at lunchtime. Play in them times and get your ability up. Can't rely on 1 hour every week session at training and a few minutes here in game time. And so yeah, once it gets to under 12, that's my sort of thoughts on it at the minute. It may change with my own team when I get there, who knows. But as a parent looking on, I believe, yeah, when you get to high school and it's under 12s, it's time for the boys and girls to start being a bit more competitive, knowing that results matter and count, and then for coaches to coach them in a certain way, learn tactics, as long as they're doing it fair. So if you've got someone sitting on a bench for a half a game or 3/4 of a game and they come on as an impact player, that perhaps next time they might start the game and someone else will be the impact player, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, like, it's all about managing it correctly. And yeah, that's where substitutes sort of come into it. I've seen it again, different coaches, like I say, 4 sets of teams I'll see every weekend. I'll see people do things slightly differently. Me, I'll perhaps wait until the end of the first quarter and the second quarter until we get to half time, whereas other people, they're rolling off within a couple of minutes. So each to their own. And then I watch my oldest boys team. They do things I call like the traditional way. They'll perhaps get to half time with not making any changes. They don't want to change it too much. Maybe dip into the second half and then look to make, I call them impact changes. They'll look to switch it up, maybe change formation. They'll throw 1 or 2 players on and mix it up, and especially if they're chasing the game. So yeah, they do it in a slightly different way. And I watched the Kingston Soccer Club at the weekend against Caleb's Waltington lot. They were chopping and changing quite heavily, and that's how they went about it. But yeah, it's easy for me to sort of criticise, but I don't criticise at all. I don't think, like I say, everyone has to find their own way at their own age group. Anything sort of below under 12s should be fairly consistent. Everyone should get equal game time. But at the under 12s, obviously, when you're a coach, you've got to coach it a little bit better and manage it and try and win games, because results are in a table, and it's when it does start meaning things. This is where I can see that the parent side of you and the parent side of me, looking on, say, last year when Caleb joined a new team, he would spend a bit of time on a bench maybe the first half, or he would be the first to come off, and you can sort of think about it as a parent and sort of be quite disappointed, because you know that the only way they're going to get better is if they have more game time, but they're always the first to come off. And you can understand why game time is such a divisive subject. As a parent, you can put the petrol in, you can run an hour across the county to the other side of the city or something like that, and then to watch your child play minimal game time is just sort of gut-wrenching. And especially with Austin last year, when it came to perhaps bigger games, cup games, I say bigger games, but when it was a cup game, the coach sort of even said to me that he'll get minutes, but he's just sort of going to manage it, so he might not start the game, and then they'll see how the game's getting on. And I think they were 6 or 7-0 down by half time anyway, so it didn't really matter anyway, and he came on and played the remainder of the game. But yeah, you don't want egos getting in the way of it really as a parent, and it's why it's such a hot topic online, because you do want your child to play as much as possible. I want my children to play as much as possible. Being a coach of my little boy, I want him to play as much as possible, but I'm perhaps even more cautious of how he needs the game time. But I'm cautious of people sort of, well, he's playing a lot, is it? It is never like that, but you have that sort of coach's guilt, I think, where sometimes it's easy to pull your own son perhaps, or not give him as much time on as perhaps other people, because you're always wary of it. So it's such a hard thing to do as a coach dad. But yeah, it is, as a parent, you just want to see your children play football and go and enjoy it. And I'll get into it again, as I say, in a minute, but I see people sort of, who do I talk to about so-and-so said he's not going to get these minutes, or we've noticed that he's hardly playing. Do I go to the coach or do I go to the welfare officer? It's such a complex matter with coaches and ethos. Like I say, our club, when you sign up, says your child will be given equal game time. Now that's fair enough, but when it comes to away from that sort of online slogan, and it's coaches on a Saturday or a Sunday, and they've got their own thoughts and ethos that may be slightly different to that, and it happens regardless of what slogan is on anybody's website, that there are coaches out there who will just go and do their own thing. So yeah, it's such a complex matter, and I don't think you're ever going to get a right or wrong answer. But as a parent, my advice would be, like myself, when my boy was told that there's a possibility that he wasn't going to play football last season, this is Austin, or he was, going to be a bit of a floater, that weren't really good enough for us. So that's hence why we found him a new club. And I think that's perhaps what you should do. These kids and that, they sort of grow up in an area and they have friends and that, and they play with them and they want to stay with them. But trust me, the new lad that I had come this week, he'd played for a team in the Kings Lynn, and he's come out, out the way to join us and had an absolutely fantastic game. He weren't getting no game time there, which just seems mad to me, because he's a great little player. And he's up and away now, and the parents are already, when do we sign on? And he's playing again this week for me. So yeah, that would be my advice. If you're not happy in a situation as a parent, you can change it fairly easy. There's always clubs out there looking for players, always, regardless of what you think. Forums online, there's loads of them. Again, I was new to football 2 or 3 years ago for youth football, and I didn't really understand how complex and how massive it was, to be fair. I just looked for a little local club. Now I'm in groups, I'm in forums, I'm on Facebook, find players, this and that, managers, group chats. Players galore out there, and there's always people looking for clubs and looking for opportunities. My advice as a parent, if your child is not enjoying it and you're having to come online and look for sort of help with, should my son be getting game time or shouldn't they be, then I think you're already answering your own questions. You should either address it, go and speak to these people, and if they're not going to get game time, just say, be open. If you're not going to play, then okay, we're not going to stick about. It is what it is. You're not going to please everybody all the time, and yeah, I do think that's wrong, but there are coaches, like I say, out there, and I watch it week in, week out. More so at Caleb's level, like I say, that is more competitive, but even last year, I see kids, under 11 sit out, half, 3/4 of a game, and then be brought on towards the end, and I just don't think that's no good for anybody. But I will say that when you do get to under 12s level, that, like I say, it does become competitive, and I do think, like I say, it's a good thing for your child to understand that it then becomes a competitive game, and game time, yeah, they should be given it, but they should be seen to be doing something about it as well. Like I say, do the extra training, be active, get fitter. You might think that's mad saying that, but that is what has helped Caleb's game this year. My own son, he was a bit lazy. He would convince himself perhaps that, I've got a little bit of an injury. I tell him, you can't mope about. The body language has got to be better. If you want to impress, teams, you want to, he's still 12 years old and he has these dreams of being, I want to be a proper footballer, and I'd sort of have to if you're going to make it, you'd perhaps already be in a professional academy, mate. But him not understanding that this journey is about friendship and it is about helping him, and when you leave school and that you have a group of friends through football and you can go and play anywhere. You can play, 6-a-side in the week and blah, blah, blah. It's all about building that. He don't quite get that at the minute. The dream is still he wants to be a footballer. Don't they all? And so they should. Like, you still got a dream. But for him to improve, to get spotted, to get better game time, to, if somebody wants him, JPL team, whatever, he's got to put in the work. And he has to understand that. He's at high school now. He has to put in the work. To get the results, you have to put in the work. You've got to help yourself as well. Like I say, when you get to the competitive stages, after under 11s, when it gets to under 12s, you've got to start putting in the work, I believe. Like, you can encourage your child to play more. You can encourage them to be active. You can take them out. Like me, even when football's finished on a Sunday, the Caleb then want to go down and play another hour. So it's all about doing these things with your children. You can help them in various ways. They can become more active. They can be in more school clubs. They can play rugby at school. They can play basketball. And it's all about learning different things like teamwork and camaraderie, and then skills as well, and building their fitness. So they can help themselves to get better, essentially, and enhance their chances of getting noticed. Like I say, Caleb went from a bench player to starting every game now, and he's playing the majority of all the games. So it just shows you what you can do with a proper mindset. And I'm honest with him. I tell him that that's how it is, and he puts the work in. So you've only got to sort of say well done to him. And just sort of one little other caveat to this whole sort of game time thing is, I believe heavily in that coaches should be more honest and they should manage it better. So like me, I have already said that it was a big error for myself in taking on 10 players, but I felt towards the end of the season that I needed the extra players because I was getting 5, 6, 7 players. I was worried I was not going to be able to field a team for a game, so I went and looked for the extra players. Then towards the end of the season, everyone's been turning up, and now we're at the end of the season. We've got the under 7 games. I've got my squad now, so that's all sort of panned out. But it's up to each coach to manage their squad. You shouldn't be taking on loads of players if you're not going to give them game times. That's just stupid. And that's how the new lad joined me. He was with a squad in Lynn training, and he just couldn't get game time. They had too many training with him and all the rest of it. Whereas, like I said about Swaffham last year, I don't understand how you can have 17 kids train and not have 2 teams, like 2 5-a-side teams, or you've got 14, 15 lads. You've got 2 7-a-side squads there, then just advertise 1 or 2 more and build a squad. Thinking about it, obviously being a new coach this year, no one gave me a manual or anything like that, but it'd be nice if someone did put a shoulder around you from a club and go, oh, you're 5-a-side this year. I would perhaps look at 8 as, your good balance, and then when you move up, get a few more. But you don't get any of that. You play it by ear, you learn as you go, especially like me, where I picked it up last minute at the beginning of this last season, and I've sort of had to learn on the go. So each person should sort of manage it. If you think you're at a limit now, like me, I'm going to be, when Ollie goes, I'm going to be at 11. And I don't really need or want any more, because it'll only cause myself headaches, and it wouldn't be fair on anybody new who's going to join. I can sign people. I think I have a squad of 14 this year, or maybe 12, but I don't really want anybody else, and now I know where I'm at. I've got my squad already in place. So yeah, I'm happy with that, and I think I can manage that well. But it does sadden me online when I see people who only offer train only and stuff like that. I mean, it could be a good thing, but for me, it'd be more of a hindrance. Like, I coach by myself. If I had 15, 16 lads, I just don't think I'd be able to nail it down properly. So if you're a coach, you've got to sort of have an ethos, also have a limit, and try and stick to it as best you can. Don't hoard players if you're not going to play them. There's no point, is there? So, and don't hoard them in respect to what's going to happen next year. That was one of the excuses that was fed to me at Swaffham last year with Austin, that, oh, I can sign 10, I'll sign 10, and then I'll keep a few others back because I don't want to lose anyone, because next year we go up to under 7, so we need more players. Like, who's gonna hold on for a whole pissing year? Think about it. Why not just set another team? But no, people do these things. It's there. They'll hoard players. Like I say, now it's a mad scramble for players for Caleb's team, because they go from under 9s to under 11. So the squad needs to be a little bit bigger, because it needs to be a bit more dynamic. They need more players. The sort of 11, 12 they've got at the minute perhaps isn't enough. If they have 1 or 2 away, then they're going to be at 11, or they could even start a game with 10 players. So I understand that. I think they've done it in the right way, where they haven't gone too far and they haven't hoarded players. So yeah, that's the way I believe coaches should manage it. You can get excited, you can get many players on board and make it trials and see who the best are, but get your limit, work with what you got, manage it, be a coach. So yeah, I think I've ran on a little bit now about game time. Obviously, like I say, controversial subject, but I am going to have a quick look at sort of some Facebook posts and stuff like that, and go through them and just sort of give my sort of view. But the type of thing that this episode has sprung from, I see it online all the time, like day in, day out, everybody asking on various Facebook groups and forums about game time. So this one, most of them are from Anonymous, because they don't want people, they come on these grassroots pages and they don't want people to out them and stuff like that, which is fair enough. But this one's from Anonymous, and this was only 3 days ago. It said, "Hi, I want to know people's opinions on fair game time, and playing your best team. I've got pros and cons to both. We're going to under 13s next season, and at the moment we are a low team with a few players who are better than the others. Currently we are playing our better players playing the whole game and the others switching, so everyone is having game time, so I try to have a maximum of 30 minutes per games. Please can I have opinions?" So yeah, this is a coach obviously asking for his opinions. He's now doing what Caleb's doing next season, moving up, and yeah, he's basically saying he plays his more skillful players most of the game, and then the lower ability ones he switches in and out. Now that's fair enough. That's what he wants to do. Like I said, as a coach, when it gets a bit more competitive, I knew that something like this would, it's like an explosion. It's a bomb dropping it in a forum like that, because you're going to get different people on different mindsets, on different thoughts, who have been affected in different ways and have different viewpoints on it. You're going to get coaches, you're going to get parents. But yeah, let's have a look at some of the responses. We've got one from a chap called David. He said, "I think it's fine. If a player is struggling, they can either push to improve or move to a club in a lower tier, and maybe they are a better match and will get more game time. From young players I have spoken to, the weaker ones don't want more game time if it's going to cost the team 3 points." So yeah, that's what I'm on about. These boys are growing up, and that's what David has just said right there. He's just said, look, players know what's going on, they're aware, and they feel that if they're a lower ability, that they may cost the team, because they want to be part of the team, but they don't want to cost the team the victory. Now, that's not a bad mindset, to be fair. Like I say, some of the kids may sort of, we're in a tight game here, now I'm alright, just keep it as it is, Yeah, David's obviously said it, he's put the onus on the players there, that they've said, no, I don't want to come on, I don't want to lose 3 points and cost my team, valuable points. But, as always, there's someone called Mark, and he's come back to that, and he said, "David, all the more reason to give everyone fair game time and not play the better players for the whole game, which is what the original posts say they do." So again, it's already sort of opened up a can of worms there, and someone else has got a different opinion where, no, you should be playing everybody same game time regardless, it will help these kids get better. So that's the type of thing like you see it online all the time. I've got another one here, another anonymous one. "Morning, child is moving club to get more game time. Their match time has been approx 10 minutes for the last 3 weeks. They suffer with anxiety and want to see out the season. Effort and determination has been perfect all season. Others have recently left for the same reasons. Same players selected and played each week, despite the ethos of being shared game time." So again, that's a really long post, that is. But again, what they're saying is that there's been a lot of turmoil within the club, and people are leaving because they just don't want to be around an environment where it's the best plays. So, like I say, coaches have their own ethos, different to parents, and this parent here is obviously saying that there's a bit of a mutiny. They go on to say what should they do, but again, if you feel your child is not getting fair game time, then what I would do is I would look elsewhere. So a response from Craig: "Giving a child at that age 10 minutes over a 3-week period is disgraceful." And then Dean has said, "There's no policing of it. You want more game time, you probably need to move." So again, that's what I've said. Like, there's no way people can police these things. Like I say, the ethos at each club is, and the FA is equal game time. But there's actually, it's just guidelines, and there's no way of policing it or enforcing it. And every coaches will do their own thing. Yeah, that's ultimately what I think it comes down to with game time. Like I say, you've got to try and find a good coach who's going to manage good game time. You've got to try and find perhaps a right club for your child's ability. Like I say, no bother if you want to be a top club with all top little players in the local area and push and win all the time and have that competitive nature. Whereas for me, it's not about that. I can't have that. I don't have that ability. I don't have that pull. So I have to work with what I've got. And I tried to build an environment where ethos of playing time is probably one of the most key factors. Fun, playing time, and then we're in it together as a collective, and we're going to try and move on as a team, as a club, and we will try to progress as time goes on. That's the ethos, and that's sort of the thought process behind what I do. And if your child is not happy in a club, there's other clubs out there, clubs and teams like mine, they'll gladly take players. if they're just willing to put in the effort and play and train and give it 100%. I think that's me running on way too long about my thoughts on this one on game time. Like I say, it's a bit of a long one, but again, I think there was plenty in there and sort of tidbits. And again, if you're a new coach or someone who wants to get into coaching, like I say, there's lots to think about, but most importantly, sort of be true to yourself, try and build a right environment. If you're under 12s, I would fair game time for everybody. Don't build a big squad if you're not going to use everybody. And hoarding players is silly, where those children can go off and get opportunities and play football at a weekend somewhere else. So yeah, don't promise people something you're not going to give, and that's about it really. And if you do those things, I really believe that you will, you'll start to build something and you'll create a positive atmosphere where children will develop and grow. But yeah, other than that, I am going to pull it to a close. As you may hear, I'm a little bit bunged up this week. I don't know where I've developed a bit of a head cold from, sort of. But yeah, so that was it. As I say, thanks again for everybody who's been listening, and massive respect. Again, I haven't got a topic lined up for next week, but it'll come to me and we'll go from there. But again, thanks for listening. I've been Ben, and this has been the Coach Dad podcast, and thanks for listening, and I'll see you again.